So we're going to start with one of my favorite poems, just to jump right into it. So I'm going to recite it, and then we'll sort of open it up a little bit together for our inspiration part of it today. It's a title poem of this book, "The Way It Is," by Bill Stafford, great poet. Bill taught me to write a poem every morning, no matter what. That was part of his spiritual practice and became part of mine. So this is the title poem. He wrote it the 3 weeks before he passed away. Uh, every morning he wrote the poem of the day and put it in a little wire basket. And then after lunch, if it's still interested in him, he would go back to it and, true it, as he called it. And on his last day, his wife found him. He had a heart attack. He was just lying in his study, and but the poem of the day was in the basket. And so we actually have his last poem, which is pretty interesting. It's not this one. He wrote this one, which is a great poem, about 3 weeks before he passed away. So here's the poem. It's called "The Way It Is." There's a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. People wonder about what you're pursuing. You have to explain about the thread, but it's hard for others to see. While you hold it, though, you can't get lost. Tragedies happen. People get hurt or die, and you'll suffer and get old. Nothing you do can stop time's unfolding. You don't ever let go of the thread. I like Stafford because he wrote short poems, and just if it was a longer poem, he boiled it down to just the essence. There's a thread you follow. This is the way it is. There's a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. People wonder about what you're pursuing. You have to explain about the thread, but it's hard for others to see. While you hold it, though, you can't get lost. Tragedies happen, people get hurt or die, and you suffer and get old. Nothing you do can stop time's unfolding. You don't ever let go of the thread. Yeah, let's work with this poem. Like all great poems, Shakespeare, great drama, great writing. Uh, there's a lot of levels working, and whatever context you're coming from when you read a great poem and try to experience a great poem, there's always more context. You can never get, there is no one meaning of any poem. It all depends on your context. I've read this poem many times. Today it's in a little different context, and I'm seeing things in it that I haven't seen before. But we're sort of in it. We're in a kind of context here. We're in a kind of morphic field because even if you're showing up for the first time, we're connected by something that's not obvious. So I want to just sort of open this up for you, sort of line by line, just so we can sort of savor it a little bit. I never analyzed poems with the students. I taught in a classroom for 30 years. Analysis is paralysis, is I like to say for poems. But I do like to open it up. I do like to break it open and then allow people to find their own context. There's a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. That's the big image here. There's a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. Now, poets, they don't plagiarize. The good poets, the great poets, they don't plagiarize, they steal. And he stole this from William Blake, and William Blake stole it from the Greek myths. In the Greek myths, there was a myth of the Minotaur who had a kind of maze that he created. He was a kind of weird half bull, half man, half, Jeffrey Epstein. We don't know what he was, but he told everybody, and especially the kids, that, there's gold in the middle of the maze and it was there for the finding. And so kids would wander in to try to get the gold, and maybe they found it, but then they couldn't get out, and he would go in and prey on them. We won't go any farther than that. Well, and this is also like the German guys wrote Hansel and Gretel about this thing too. So everybody steals from everybody when you get into the imaginal world. So some smart little Greek kids decided they would bring some yarn, and as they went into the maze, leave the yarn, just unroll the ball, and when they got the gold, then they just rolled it up and they found their way out before the Minotaur could get to them. Well, that's Hansel and Gretel with the breadcrumbs. And it's also William Blake in Jerusalem, where he's really getting into the context we're talking about, because it's about the divine talking to Adam, to the first man. And in part of Jerusalem, Blake steals the line, and he says, I give you the end of a golden string. Only wind it into a ball. It will lead you in at heaven's gate, built in Jerusalem's wall. Beautiful. I give you the end of a golden string. So this is the divine talking to all of us humans, at least in Blake's view, in Jerusalem. He said, I give you the end of a golden string. Only wind it into a ball. It will lead you in at heaven's gate, built in Jerusalem's wall. One of the 8 gates of the old city of Jerusalem was called Heaven's Gate. Another one was called the Eye of the Camel. Jesus ripped off that image, But so this idea of directional, that we have something to follow here, and it's as easy as winding this child's playing away, if you realize. Yeah, so that's the first part, that there's something given here, but we have a direction. And this thing this thread will go among things that change, but it doesn't change. What would that be? So you're working on this poem now, and he said, people wonder about what you are pursuing. I wonder how many of you know what that feels like at some time in your life. People wonder about what you are pursuing. Yeah. I mean, try to explain to your spouse what you're doing here today, Yeah. People wonder about what you're pursuing. You have to explain about the thread, but it's hard for others to see. I think he understated it a little bit. It may be almost impossible for others to see. People wonder about what you're pursuing. You have to explain about the thread, but it's hard for others to see. Sometimes you're walking this path alone. You're following a certain thread in your life alone, and nobody understands it. Not your spouse, not your family. Remember when we moved from Houston to Kentucky, everybody in both of our families thought we were crazy because we moved here without jobs and left, the economic center of America at the time to go to Kentucky. I won't tell you what my father said, but he used a few of the words you cannot use on TV. Let's put it that way. So anyway, it's hard for others to see. Now here's the key. While you hold it though, you can't get lost. Tragedies happen. People get hurt or die. You'll suffer and get old. Tragedies happen. Somebody asked me yesterday, and they said, why did Ruth Bader Ginsburg have to die now? Tragedies happen. People get hurt or die. We suffer and get old. Nothing you do, if you're Jeff Bezos, President of the United States, doesn't matter. Nothing you do can stop time's unfolding. Key word there. Tragedies happen. People get hurt or die. You suffer and get old. Nothing you do can stop time's unfolding. You don't ever let go of the thread. Yeah. To me, it's kind of a brilliant. It's almost like a gospel passage here for anybody who's going into the contemplative life. Um, we would want a steel cable, or we'd want a yellow brick road, but the fact is, we get a thread, and you got to hold on to it. You got to realize that you have one at all times, but it's a thread. It's not, like a triptych from AAA. It just isn't. This passage, this spiritual journey, we talked at the beginning of almost 3 months ago now, 10 weeks ago, we talked about that we're on this journey that where we start out as nobody, and then with any luck, we become somebody, and we find our niche in the world, find our way to contribute to society. Maybe we do real well, maybe we don't, but we at least have a bit of a biography, a bit of a resume. Yeah. So we start at nobody, we become somebody, but then in the second half of life, especially, but for the complete journey that we're all on, everybody's journey, then the call is to become everybody. And we've sort of been talking about what that means all the way through. There's a thread. Even just that image that we're on this journey where we go from nobody to somebody to everybody. Even that image that could be the way it is, that's a thread right there. Maybe a mysterious thread. How do you go from being somebody, from being Jeff Bezos or from being any of us? We have a biography, we've accomplished certain things, we've failed at other things, we sort of like leave those out of the biography, We'd like to anyway. Unfortunately, that's part of the biography. But then there's this challenge to keep going. Maybe when your job has ended, you've either been fired or retired, or you're getting older, and so you just you've put in your time. Now you're retiring, and great, But then what? Even when you have loads of dough, then what? Then the challenge is to become everybody. Now, the contemplative journey is about that. It's about the last leg of the journey, of an endless journey, really. It's hard to, it's a little bit paradoxical. It's the last leg of an endless journey, but it's the challenge is to become everybody. And what does that mean? People say, well, what are you doing now? Oh, well, I'm becoming everybody. A little hard for people to see that thread. People will wonder about what you're pursuing. Oh, I'm becoming everybody. But that is a contemplative path. You might say, if you decide you want to live this way, a slower, saner, deeper, more fulfilling, more meaningful way of life, that's what contemplative living is. If that's your path, well, that's the thread right there. And to do that, you have to take some time. You take some time. Maybe your contemplative practice, whatever form it takes, is the thread in that context, you see. Again, there's a lot of context for this poem, but we're all meeting here to serve. We've been working on contemplative prayer and meditation, just this part of the journey for these last 10 weeks. And so I have a woman now. Some of you know Jan Calvert. She's been working with me a lot, and some of you have done sessions with her or whatever. And she's got one brother dying in one hospital, and her husband's dying in another hospital. And she's just like, you can imagine what that's like. What's that like to go through? And I keep reminding her about the thread. She texts me, just screams for help, and I just send her back basically information about the thread. She said, I don't have any time to meditate. And I said, to have to meditate, that's why you've been meditating for all these years. I said, now this is where the rubber hits the road. I said, just breathe and be present, and send Jim love. Hold his hand. You don't have to be, that's it. That's why you've been practicing all these years. We practice for these moments where they're overwhelming and we don't know what to do. And if I really, encourage you to just keep her in your heart. Keep Ruth Bader Ginsburg in your heart, in your practice. And, all the people, I always have part of my prayer for all the people who don't have a practice, who never even thought of having a practice, who are just drifting out there. See, in the vagaries, there's a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. Yeah. Again, it's not a steel cable. It's not a map. It's a thread. But it's so great to have that, especially when things change. And when don't they change? When don't they change? That's just the way it is. That's why he calls it that. So I'll do a follow-up on this after the session, and I'll send you this poem so you'll have it. It's one to have it hang up in your heart, though, because I find that it comes up it came up this weekend with the passing of the graduation of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. The monks at the monastery, when a monk dies, they say, "Oh, brother so-and-so graduated Tuesday night." And when I first heard it, I said, "What?" And they said, "Yeah, I graduated." And I said, "You mean he died?" And I said, "Yeah." They said, "What's the point of being in the school?" They call the contemplative life for a Trappist is we're in the school of love. We're in the school to learn how to love people. He said, "What's the point of being in school if you never graduate?" So that's their view. Yeah. Everything changes. Yeah. So we're going to jump into just doing some practice, taking some time to just basically dropping everything on the upper levels of consciousness, the monkey mind, kind of chattery mind, dropping that down, the rational mind that's trying to figure out things and fix things. That's all good. I mean, even the monkey mind, it's got survival, it's brainstem kind of survival stuff. Nothing wrong with it. You wouldn't want to get rid of it, but we're going deeper. We're dropping that. We're dropping the strategic mind all into the deepest part of consciousness, which is the heart, called the heart in contemplative practice. And that's beyond thinking. So that's where our relationship to thought changes if you try to do meditation or contemplation in whatever form. You got to change. It's a change of consciousness here, and it's an intention to change a consciousness for, a few minutes. Just let go of thought. You don't have to get rid of it. You let go of monkey mind. You don't have to get rid of it. It might still be there, but we're not worried about it. See, just don't worry about anything. Just let yourself sink. Okay? All right. So we'll go into meditative mode now. Starting with the gong. It's always good just to breathe at both ends of the meditation. Just sort of cleaning your carburetor out here. Just breathe. Gentle, slow breathing through the nose if you can do it. If you're not stuffed up or something, in and out through the nose. Just feeling the breath coming in. It's a little cooler. Going out. It's a little warmer. Just the breath. That's the thread. It's another context. The breath is your thread. It's always there. That's why it's so important in meditation, you see. So just a few words to help us sink a little bit, help us drop into the heart. Be still and see that we are love. Be still. and see that we are. Be still and see. Be still. Be